On July 11th, the world will change for good. On July 11th, the world will get a chance to see David Corenswet fly in James Gunn's iconic upcoming film Superman. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. On July 11th, there will be comparisons between Gunn and Zack Snyder's take on this iconic role. The teaser for James Gunn's Superman showcased one simple yet powerful scene that is bound to draw comparisons to Zack Snyder's 2013 film. When veteran director Zack Snyder released his take on Superman with Man of Steel, the director defended the destruction that was caused during that particular timeline. The teaser for James Gunn's Superman, however, tells a different tale. One big question in the history of the MCU as well as the DCU and DCU that has often been asked is about the destruction. Destruction of cities while two gods are fighting in the sky, the loss of human life involved in the conflict, and the collateral damage that the fight causes. Although it was a very small scene, the hidden meaning behind this scene was more than what words could say. James Gunn's Superman actually cares for the people and also sees civilian safety during any destruction. Kicking things off at the most critical moment, the teaser starts with David Corenswet's Superman at one of his lowest moments. The teaser goes back and forth in the timeline, and during one moment, we see Superman heroically save a girl from an explosion. Check out the trailer below. Back in 2013, Snyder and Henry Cavill released the iconic DCU film Man of Steel. Being the origin story of Superman, we see Cavill take on the iconic role and develop himself into the Man of Steel. That simple heroic act was what made people see Superman as hope. That small act of saving the girl meant that James Gunn and David Corenswet's Superman was going to be much different than Zack Snyder's. In an interview with the Japan Times, Zack Snyder defended the destruction by stating that he wanted the film to have a mythological feel around it. "I wanted the movie to have a mythological feeling. In ancient mythology, mass deaths are used to symbolize disasters. In other countries like Greece and Japan, myths were recounted through the generations, partly to answer unanswerable questions about death and violence." He further continued, "In America, we don't have that legacy of ancient mythology. Superman is probably the closest we get. It's a way of recounting the myth." Well, all that destruction and CGI scenes came with a heavy cost since according to IMDb, the film had a budget of $225 million. The film had a global box office collection of $670 million and was the start of Zack Snyder's DCU. During the events of the film, however, there were a lot of scenes involving destruction and skyscrapers falling from the sky. Although there were no direct death scenes involved, it is safe to assume that the people of Metropolis were not too happy about it. With David Corenswet starring in the lead role and James Gunn helming the project as its director, Superman is slated for a release date of July 11, 2025 in theaters across the U.S. When Justice League was being made, DC sent two executives to babysit the decisions that Zack Snyder made for the film. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. There were many things that hardcore fans of the comics did not like about his films. It would seem that DC Studios caught on quite quickly and took some very serious steps to ensure that his vision aligned with theirs. While some might call the measures they took extreme, Snyder did not seem to mind them in the slightest. Zack Snyder has become somewhat of a legend in the world of DC. While the franchise has been moving to a new phase, leaving him behind, the impact that his films had on the reputation of the franchise is something to be studied. While this is true, many seem to forget the kind of criticism that he received when he was in his prime and not a glorified figure of the past. When Justice League was being made, DC sent two executives to babysit the decisions that Zack Snyder made for the film. He turned certain characters that were supposed to be bright, like Superman, and turned them grayscale. He also broke quite a lot of fundamental rules for certain characters, with Batman and his refusal to kill being the perfect example of the same. With this in mind, it would seem that the franchise was not taking any chances in his Justice League film. One of the biggest criticisms that Zack Snyder got during his term with DC Studios was the fact that his films were too dark, be it in the general themes of the franchise or simply the visual aspects. The criticism became so widely known that instead of just his films getting such a reputation, the entire DCU was perceived the same way. Although he did not like his position in the slightest, he made sure to be rational about the requests he was making of Snyder. During an interview with Vanity Fair, it was revealed that the franchise had given DC Entertainment creative chief Jeff Johns and Warner Bros. Co-production head John Berg the responsibility of overseeing the director's filmmaking process. It would seem that at least one of them was required to be on set at all times to ensure that everything was in check, as revealed by Berg. It was really tricky and not a position that I loved, to be honest. I tried to be forthright about what I thought creatively. My job was to try to mediate between a creator whose vision is instinctually dark and a studio that perceived, rightly or wrong, that the fans wanted something lighter. I was respectful of the director and didn't pursue things that were coming at me from the corporate side that I thought weren't in line with what would make the best movie. He started by calling Jeff Johns and John Berg's jobs babysitting rather than overseeing, perfectly encapsulating the purpose he believed the studio to have with their presence on set. However, he then added that he did not mind their insight, simply because they did not approach him in a hostile manner. It is safe to assume that if any other director was put in such a position, they would have walked off the project the moment they found out. Having people oversee someone's creative process for the sake of bureaucracy is certainly an insult in the eyes of many. However, it would seem that Zack Snyder wasn't one of them. When asked about the same, the director claimed he knew what they were on set for. He added, "You could say babysit." Rather than taking over the project and demanding that everything be done according to the studio, they only intervened when they felt it to be necessary. While they did interject here and there once weren't something too extreme in the eyes of Cinder, which made their presence acceptable to him. Justice League is available for streaming on Max. It didn't bother me too much because they weren't that threatening. I just felt the ideas they did have, where they were trying to inject humor and stuff like that, it wasn't anything that was too outrageous. Following the release of Matt Reeves' box office hit, The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson in 2022, it was revealed that the highly appreciated movie will be part of a trilogy like that of Christian Bale's Caped Crusader. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. Right after the box office success of the movie, Warner Brothers had greenlit the project for a trilogy. Perhaps it's time to take out your tissues over your black capes, because Gotham might be losing another Batman. Yep, it's looking real gloomy, because we've already been facing the dreadful delay situation with Robert Pattinson's The Batman 2. And now, reports suggest that his broody eyes and emo eyeliner might be facing the axe. And who warned us about this ages ago? Zack Snyder fans, of course. They've been waving red flags louder than a bat signal. Now, James Gunn is reportedly scouting for his own version of the Dark Knight for the rebooted DC universe, and things aren't looking good for Robert Pattinson's Batman. Robert Pattinson's The Batman 2 might be cancelled as James Gunn is reportedly searching for a new Dark Knight. Gotham feels doomed. And now, as fans' hopes of seeing Robert Pattinson don the black suit began slipping into the Gotham shadows, the rumors became more real than ever. Canadian film critic John Campea took to his podcast to share fresh reports of how the Batman sequel might not even see the light of day since it has been secretly cancelled. "I think it's more likely that the Batman 2 gets cancelled. What started as a delay has now turned into something scarier, a full-on cancellation. With a new boss in town, James Gunn steering